JonBenet Patricia Ramsey was born on August 6, 1990, in Atlanta, Georgia, into a family that appeared to embody success, stability, and opportunity. Her father, John Ramsey, was a prominent businessman leading a thriving technology company, while her mother, Patsy Ramsey, was known for her background in pageantry and public life. Together, they created a home filled with structure, ambition, and attention to detail. JonBenet grew up surrounded by comfort, encouragement, and the expectations that often accompany affluence. She was not an only child. Her older brother Burke and two adult half-siblings formed a layered family dynamic that blended guidance, independence, and shared routines. When the family later settled in Boulder, Colorado, their large home reflected their success. But inside, it was a typical household filled with routines, affection, and the everyday rhythms of family life that framed JonBenet's early years. A bright personality shaped by confidence and care. From a young age, JonBenet displayed a lively and outgoing personality that naturally drew people toward her. She was known for her confidence, expressive nature, and ease in social settings, traits that her parents encouraged with enthusiasm. One outlet for that confidence was the world of child beauty pageants, where JonBenet participated with visible joy and poise. For her family, these events were not about pressure but celebration, allowing her to express creativity through costumes, performance, and stage presence. Outside of pageantry, JonBenet attended kindergarten like any other child her age, forming friendships, learning routines, and enjoying the simple pleasures of childhood. Her life, while more public than most, was balanced between school, family, and hobbies. To those who knew her, she was not defined by titles or appearances, but by her warmth, curiosity, and unmistakable spark. The morning that changed everything. The illusion of safety surrounding the Ramsey household shattered on the morning of December 26, 1996. What began as a quiet post-holiday morning quickly turned into confusion and fear when Patsy Ramsey discovered a handwritten note on the staircase of the family home. The message claimed JonBenet had been taken and demanded money, throwing the family into immediate panic. Law enforcement was contacted right away, and the home filled with officers, friends, and uncertainty. Hours later, the situation took a devastating turn when JonBenet was found deceased inside the house. The shock of this discovery rippled far beyond the family, reaching the local community and soon the entire nation. In a single day, a case that began as a suspected kidnapping transformed into a tragedy that would haunt public consciousness for decades, leaving behind grief, unanswered questions, and profound disbelief. A tragedy met with investigation and error. As authorities began investigating JonBenet's death, the case was immediately complicated by early missteps that would later prove critical. Initial assumptions led investigators to focus on a kidnapping scenario, rather than fully securing the entire home as a potential crime scene. As a result, movement throughout the house was not tightly controlled, increasing the risk of evidence contamination. In moments of shock and distress, family members acted without the benefit of forensic guidance, unintentionally altering key details that investigators would later wish had been preserved. Interviews with family members were conducted under conditions that critics would later question, and procedures that are now standard were not strictly followed. These early decisions did not stem from malice, but from confusion and limited experience with such a high-profile case. Still, they shaped the trajectory of the investigation in ways that could never be undone. The ransom note and lingering doubts. One of the most debated aspects of the case remains the ransom note itself. Its length, tone, and specific details raised questions almost immediately, fueling speculation and intense analysis. Experts examined its wording, handwriting, and context, while the public dissected every phrase. The fact that no further communication followed only deepened the mystery and left investigators without a clear direction. At the same time, the absence of obvious signs of forced entry led to uncomfortable theories that focused inward rather than outward. These unanswered questions became fertile ground for suspicion, and over time, the Ramsey family found themselves under relentless scrutiny. What should have been a private period of mourning turned into a public trial of opinion, where uncertainty was often mistaken for guilt and speculation blurred into assumption. Legal outcomes. Without clear resolution, despite years of investigation, testing, and review, the case resisted definitive conclusions. DNA analysis conducted in the late 1990s did not directly implicate any immediate family members, creating distance between suspicion and proof. Legal proceedings added further complexity when a grand jury voted to indict the parents, yet prosecutors declined to move forward, citing insufficient evidence for a conviction. This decision satisfied no one fully, leaving the public divided and the case suspended in a state of unresolved tension. Later advancements in forensic science introduced new findings involving unidentified DNA, prompting official apologies to the Ramsey family and a shift in public stance. Still, no arrests were made and no charges followed. The case remained open in name, but stalled in progress, a painful reminder of how justice can remain elusive even under intense attention. Growing up in the shadow of a mystery. For Burke Ramsey, JonBenet's older brother, the tragedy marked the end of a normal childhood. At just 9 years old, he lost his sister and was thrust into a world of suspicion, cameras, and whispered accusations. As he grew older, Burke chose silence, retreating from public view while speculation followed him relentlessly. Media portrayals and online discussions often cast him as a subject of intrigue rather than a grieving child, creating a burden few could comprehend. This prolonged silence was not indifference, but self-preservation. Living under constant judgment shaped his adult life, influencing his choices, relationships, and sense of safety. For decades, Burke remained a symbol rather than a voice in the story, his perspective overshadowed by louder narratives crafted without his participation or consent. Breaking silence after nearly 3 decades. Nearly 28 years later, Burke Ramsey made the unexpected decision to speak publicly, reopening a chapter many believed would remain closed. As an adult, he addressed the emotional toll of the tragedy with honesty and restraint, describing a childhood defined by loss and confusion rather than secrecy. He spoke of JonBenet not as a case, but as a sister whose laughter and presence were deeply missed. Burke reflected on the investigation with measured criticism, pointing to early mistakes and urging renewed efforts using modern technology. His words carried neither accusation nor defensiveness, but a quiet plea for fairness and truth. By sharing his experience, Burke humanized a story long dominated by theories, reminding the world that behind every headline were real people navigating unimaginable pain. A renewed call for understanding and justice. Burke Ramsey's decision to speak has reignited interest in the case, prompting fresh discussions among legal experts, investigators, and the public. While his words did not provide definitive answers, they offered something equally important: perspective. The case of JonBenet Ramsey has endured not because of what is known, but because of what remains unresolved. Today, calls for renewed investigation focus less on blame and more on accountability, clarity, and compassion. Burke's voice adds depth to a narrative often flattened by sensationalism, shifting attention back to the true loss at its center. Nearly 3 decades later, the hope remains that truth, however delayed, can still emerge. Not only to solve a mystery, but to honor a life remembered for its brightness, not its tragedy.